Hi. The film I'll be talking about today is A Face in the Crowd. This film was directed by Elia Kazan and stars Andy Griffith, Patricia, Neal, and Walter Matthau. This film is about the character Lonesome Rhodes, played by Andy Griffith. He is discovered by Patricia Neal, who plays Marcia Jeffries in the film, in a little rundown jail in Arkansas. And she does this show for the local radio station in town called A Face in the Crowd, where she just goes and finds random people and kind of plucks them out of obscurity and just puts them on the radio, and it's kind of this down-home little thing that she does. And while in this jail, she comes into contact with Lonesome Rhodes, which we find in the film when you watch it, Lonesome's not even his name. He just gives her his last name and says it's Rhodes. And then she says, okay, Lonesome. We'll later on in the film find out his name is Larry, but it's kind of important to know that she's the one that said, okay, Lonesome Rhodes. She created this product, is the way I would describe it. And as they're talking, she tells him, when you're ready, you'll sing into this recording and it'll be on the radio and we'll communicate. Without him knowing it, she's hit record and she's got it running. He's being recorded without his knowledge to make it authentic. They get a big response from it. They then go and track him down, and it sets in motion. Lonesome Rhodes, basically, in this film, becomes the first real reality TV influencer of his time. And this film's made in 1957 when TV's still a relatively new phenomenon. The real first TV stars were people like Jack Benny, Milton Berle, Ed Sullivan, Jackie Gleason, and it was still new. It was coming from the days of vaudeville, and a lot of the shows, like in Ed Sullivan, you just had different acts come out, and radio was kind of being pushed to the side, and television now, this thing where it was visual, and they could come into your home every day. And we see Lonesome Rhodes go from this bumpkin in the middle of nowhere to this cynical megalomaniac. I, watching the film, can still maintain a certain amount of sympathy for him because he truly, it was done to him. And at a certain point, he became a willing participant. But they went and found him. And up until then, he was just living his life. And then when he got a taste of that fame, that power, that influence, it changed him. And haven't we seen that happen to so many public figures who end up having meltdowns to these influencers, and then the scandals arise? And there's a line in the film where as he's slowly progressing up the ladder, Walter Matthau, who plays Mel Miller in the film, he's kind of the erudite one he's the first one to really see through Lonesome Rhodes and see that this guy is bad news. And there at some event, at a baton twirling thing where he's going to pick like the next Miss Arkansas. And he said, it's a dangerous thing. And Patricia, Neal's character, Marcia Jeffries, looks at him and says, what do you mean? And he said, the power that little box can give you, you'd have to be a saint to be able to stand up to it. And we find out in the film that Lonesome Rhodes is no saint. Andy Griffith gives one of the best performances I've ever seen anybody give in a film, in the sense that we kind of slowly see him take hold of things and start to piece together and become this cunning, cynical, cutthroat man who at one time was just somebody who, when he got out of that jail, was telling them he was on his way to Florida to go fishing. He didn't have any ambition. He had nothing. And by the end of it, he's a little more cynical and savvy than just about everybody else. And watching Griffith do this so seamlessly, and he was so perfect for this choice because Lonesome Rhodes is supposed to be a bumpkin, and at this time, the Andy Griffith show doesn't even exist. He was doing No Time for Sergeants on Broadway. And Kazan and Bud Schulberg, who wrote the screenplay, thought he would be good for it because he wasn't necessarily a trained actor. He's more of a performer. He works off of an audience. And the character Lonesome in this film becomes a talk show host, and he's kind of feeding off of a crowd. Well, who better than Andy Griffith, who at this time, as I said, he was doing No Time for Sergeants. Before that, he'd had these comedy acts that he was doing, a record called What It Was Football, and he would do Romeo and Juliet for these audiences, and he killed. He would do stuff about Hamlet, and it was a hillbilly interpretation of Shakespeare, things like he would play this bumpkin. And the thing is, to be able to do that, you have to be smart. And I don't know if Malcolm X came up with this expression, but he's the one I heard it from, and I think he was quoted as saying it in a book, that a wise man can imitate a clown, but a clown cannot imitate a wise man. It's very true, and we see it in this film. He takes that rural, down-home quality that he has and realizes the influence that gives him in a way that the coastal elites don't understand. And that's such a theme in America and has been for so long. How often do we see politicians do everything in their power to not seem aristocratic, to not seem like royalty, to seem down home? I remember when John Kerry was running for president and he was campaigning in the South, and they asked him a certain question. He said, well, that dog won't hunt. I highly doubt John Kerry talks like that in his personal life. Or you see the governor on TV, working at a Waffle House. I've seen pictures when Bill Clinton was running for president of he and Zell Miller at the Varsity together. There was a thing where Barack Obama took some people to Five Guys, I think, when the economy was struggling. They're always doing their damnedest to say, I'm one of you, just like you. And that message has always been important in politics, to be one of us. We don't want anyone that we feel is necessarily superior to us. We want to see ourselves in our candidates. And it's really not like that other places. America has a very kind of populist attitude when it comes to that. And I guess it's because we're a country that kind of went off on our own to get away from that kind of tyranny, to get away from the elite. And we're not an elitist country. And when somebody who it seems has come up the way we have and gets that power, they end up having this influence where it's scary, because anytime somebody becomes that influential, how can they then not be corrupted? How can they not, even if they came with the purest of intentions, turn into everything they used to abhor, they used to disdain, and now they are that? And in the movie, A Face in the Crowd was so good, as it shows him doing a thing on the radio, and he's talking about the sheriff of the jail where he was in, and he was running for mayor, and he said, where I come from, we don't really think much of officials like that. And he tells everybody in town, let's see if he could even be a dog catcher. Why don't you carry your dogs to his house? And it shows them go out, and they just see that there's these dogs everywhere at the sheriff's house. She says something like, wow, the power that you have to say something and people just do it. You see it click in his eyes. He knows what's going on. And then as the radio show progresses and they see the connection that he has with the people, somebody from Memphis, because they're in Arkansas, approaches, and he goes and starts doing a show in Memphis, and he's growing. And he's getting better, and he's off the cuff. He won't stick to the scripts. He's ad-libbing. He's not worried about anything. And that's what's making him come across to the people. And they're wanting him to plug a mattress company. He won't do it. He speaks honestly about the mattress, and it's blowing up the guy's business, and these other people are seeing that and seeing the power that this man has. And one of the guys who works in the office of that mattress company, he sees his opportunity. He knows where the money's going to be. He knows who's on his way up, and it's Lonesome. And he kind of hitches his wagon to Lonesome, and he puts him in contact with the people in New York, saying, look, this guy has power and has influence. Like him or not, he's got it. And the people he puts him in contact with, there's this pill called Vitajex, And at the time, it would be kind of like what Viagra became later, kind of this thing for men to kind of like, not necessarily an enhancement, but just to kind of make them feel, like a testosterone kick, whatever it would be. And when he shows up, he goes in there and they're kind of reading off the stuff and explaining what the pills do. And Lonesome understands, because he is common folk, that doesn't reach them. We don't care. That's going right in here and right out there. And he takes the pill and he kind of shakes it out in his hand. And he looks, he goes, it's white. Make it yellow. The sun's yellow. Get your day started. It does it. And they're like listing off all the things about it that you would list with something like that. And he takes it up, throws it in the air, catches it in his mouth, his eyes check, and he just goes on this tear. And he's showing them, this is how you advertise. This is what you do. And it takes off. He promotes it on his show there. The sales go through the roof. Before that, nothing. And it's so true with advertising. It's not what's in it, it's how you present. And he understands that. You got to hit them here, not here. And eventually the owner, who in the film is referred to as General of Vitajex, approaches him. He's got somebody he'd like running for Senate. And he just pushes his career, sends him into the stratosphere, gets him on the cover of Life magazine and things like that. He becomes kind of like a new Will Rogers. And he puts him in contact with this senator that he would like to see, the general character of Vitajex, that he would like to see get elected. And when he does this is where you see kind of Griffith's character, Lonesome, have to explain to the senator, nobody will ever vote for you because they respect you. And he says that. And he's like, well, I can do good for the people. I think I know what's best. Doesn't matter. Nobody's ever bought anything in their life because they respect it. They got to love it. And they got to love you. And it made me think of something that I heard one time about why feelings matter more than facts. Facts are acknowledged, but feelings are felt. And Lonesome knows that. And it also shows how now, I don't know how it was, I can't speak to what it was in the 1930s, but how the intermingling of entertainment, business, and politics, how they all kind of meshed and became one. And how the celebrity endorsement took on a power that it never should have had, shouldn't have today. I mean, I remember when Zell Miller was running for governor, George Jones did a campaign ad for him. Now, George Jones went to the 7th grade in school. He's one of my favorites. I don't think he knows anything about politics. I just don't think he does. He's had a slew of personal problems, but he had a big following. He had a lot of fans. They'll take it. Oprah Winfrey, daytime talk show host. Barack Obama probably would have won, but he'll take it. They all will take that celebrity on the left and on the right. They both do it. They all want that star power. They all need the shine and the glitz and the glamour that Hollywood knows how to do. And what's interesting too is like looking at this movie, knowing when it was made, seeing where we are now, and thinking about somebody like a Roger Ailes who created Fox News, and who, when he started, was, I believe, like a producer on the Mike Douglas show. So he knew showbiz. He knew how to put a show together. He knew what kind of colors to use. And he also knew that that's where it's headed. And when you think of news shows today, there's one on Fox called What Fox and Friends. These people are friends. They're not just broadcasters anymore. They're your buddies. Look at podcasts. You don't almost feel like that their life is an open book to everybody. There's nothing we don't know. We share everything now. You look at somebody who's probably nobody's more popular right now than Ella Langley. She'll show you herself getting ready backstage, give you the makeup stuff she uses, do all of it. It's everywhere. And there doesn't seem to be any part of anyone's life in that business anymore that's not for sale, because it's the nature of the beast now. And if you say, no, I'm not doing that, good luck being on a magazine cover, in the following week. You've got to stay in front of the people or they'll forget about you. And the other thing it showed is how we as a country almost demand our politicians to dumb down the message. Put it in those down-home terms. And it shows Lonesome hunting with the senator who'd never gone duck hunting in his life. And he gives him the nickname Curly when they first meet. And the guy has a receding hairline. Andy Griffith takes his hand, kind of swipes it back and says, we'll call you Curly. We got to make you homie. And around this time, Richard Nixon, he had done an ad one time, or I think he paid for a certain amount of time to address something about a slush fund. And this was before he'd even run against Kennedy. And he was talking about how, we have a dog named Checkers. Stuff like that, where they're always trying to humanize themselves. And he even says to him, we need to see you with like a dog or something like that. And I'm going to create this show called the Cracker Barrel thing. And we'll just sit and I'll have some country folk around me and we'll really down home it up. And that's what they do. And when he's explaining this to the senator, he points to a friend of his, played by Rod Brasfield, who was an actual comedian at the Grand Ole Opry and actually died a year after this film was made. And a little side thing here, Rod Brasfield, when he was at the Grand Ole Opry, would sometimes perform with a ventriloquist. And he called the ventriloquist, the dummy, Bocephus. And Hank Williams then would call Hank Jr.'s little boy Bocephus, and that's how that whole thing got started. But back to the movie. He points at Rod Brasfield, who goes by Beanie in the film. And he was with Lonesome at that jail in the beginning. And he said, you see that guy there? He's as dumb as they come. But he's who you got to get to. And I think it's safe to say that's what our politicians still think. And the way that they're always trying to make that message more palatable to that mainstream, dominant, old demographic, that they don't ever try to bring it up. They're always bringing it down. And eventually, as this film progresses, Lonesome, the Patricia Neal character, she begins to lose more control. At one point, he tells her he wants to be with her. He then betrays that and gets involved with Lee Remick that he met at a beauty contest in Arkansas. And this was her first film, by the way. She's known probably best for Anatomy of a Murder and The Days of Wine and Neurosis. He gets entangled with her and starts pushing people away. And she becomes disenchanted with him. And she's at a bar one night and she runs into Mel Miller, played by Matthau, who Griffith's character always referred to as Vanderbilt 44, because that's when he graduated from Vanderbilt. And he's talking with her at the bar and he's explaining, and he said, I'm writing a book on him, and I'm going to call it Demagogue and Denim. And she's ashamed because she's the one that created him, and then she herself bought in to the hype. She kind of conned him, and then he conned her. And he said we all kind of fell for a certain time, but we all eventually got wise to him. And she distances herself from him, and things begin to unravel. And then one day she goes into the show. She's shown up late, and she's in the control room. And he's doing his regular down-home country spiel. And at a certain point, when the credits are rolling, and he's talking. One of the guys in the control room said, "Man, if the people could hear how he really talks about them." Light bulb goes on. She knows now what she's gonna do. And she hits it. And he's saying things, these dumb sheep, these idiots, these crackers, these rednecks, they just listen to everything I say. They're so... And as he's doing it, he thinks credits are rolling. He's looking in the camera, he's smiling, and he's just letting it go. All I have to do is say jump, and they jump. I say this, they do it, and he is letting it fly. And they're trying to get her out of the control room, and she's kind of taking her arms like that, and she's just not moving. And so then he goes out not knowing any of this, gets on the elevator, and as this going down, and you see the switchboard is lit up. And that night he was going to go to some benefit. And he calls and he's begging her to come to his little penthouse in New York. Well, not little, big penthouse suite in New York. And he has what he called a reaction machine, like has a laugh track on it, the buttons you can press, and it's just going, and it's very eerie. He's by himself. He doesn't understand what happened, how it happened. He realizes something got lit, and then she looks at him, and he's telling her somehow or another they heard what I said, and he's drunk, and he's out of his head. And she said, "I did it." And if that isn't a bucket of cold water, I did it to you. It was me. You had to be stopped. And he's just disgusted with her and how he'll be back. They can't keep him down. And as they're walking to the elevator, Mel, played by Matthau, turns to him. When he said, you'll be back in a smaller market on, with something that doesn't ever mean as much. You won't have near the ratings. And then eventually, you'll disappear. And you'll become that guy that they'll say, "Whatever happened to him?" And he just can't, watching him say that to him, like, it's over. Take a good look around, because you lost all of this and you'll never be here ever again. And they get on the elevator and you hear him screaming for Marcia. "Don't leave me. Don't leave me." Screaming from the top. It made me almost think of A Streetcar Named Desire, another Kazan film where Brando screams Stella. The way he's just screaming at the top of his lungs. And then they leave and you see like the Coca-Cola sign in New York flashing. And it just says "The End." And the film did not get good reviews when it came out. Was not well received by critics. Dorothy Kilgallen, who was on a show called What's My Line, said she took her son to see it and she apologized to him for it. But watching it now, and I said this about Network, and it's very true about Network and this, but what's even more incredible about this is that in Network, TV had been around for over 20 years at that point. It's just like still a handful of years. And it was if they were looking at that box and thought, if the wrong person ever got too big, what could happen? When people who should never have influence have it. And it's where we are now. I mean, we live in a world now where, you can do makeup tutorials online where if Kim Kardashian said, "I'm endorsing this candidate," might mean something. And the one thing they all have in common, and they have followers. And it doesn't seem to matter why you have followers. What matters is whether you have the followers, not why you have them. Just if you have them and how many. And this shows how TV kind of opened those pathways. And now social media, forget it. Or how the wrong person can become this tyrannical megalomaniac, which is what happened to Lonesome Rhodes. And it kind of shows us how when these things happen, we're all complicit in it. Because they can't become it. They can't get on the pedestal without us putting them there. And watching this film, knowing the kind of world that we live in today, is a very eerie experience, but I highly recommend anybody watch this film, because you'll basically be watching it and thinking, wow, all that happened. That is how they try to reach us. That is what they're doing. It's all people now, like even in politics, it's all about the outsider. The guy who's going to shake up the system, the guy who's going to save us, the guy, we're always looking for that. For these mythic heroes to come in who we set up basically to crash and burn. And then where are we? I know that doesn't sound like a good time, and maybe you're thinking, I don't want to watch it, but trust me, you will enjoy this film. So I really hope you watch it. Until next time, thanks.